Yeah, mate, just message the group. They're there now. Are you picking them up? Yeah, yeah. Right, I'll run over, mate.
Good morning everyone and welcome to the second day of BUCS Regatta 2022. We're back underway with side-by-side racing. Thank you so much for joining us here. My name's William Horrocks and I'm joined here by Alex Darby in the commentary box. We'll be with you for the next hour or so. Our first race of side-by-side racing is going to be the semi-finals of the women's intermediate lightweight singles. We've got Birmingham B, Helen Gilbody in 1, Jodie Cameron of Cambridge in 2, Alex Scrowcock of Reading in 3, Sam McCormick of Queens in 4, Emma Padfield of De Montfort in 5, and Joanna Kinder of Heriot-Watt in 6.
Yeah, so this race was supposed to go off about 20 minutes ago, so a bit of a nervy wait for these ladies, but it's all time now. You know, they knew they had to race side by side. If you've been watching the feed, you'd have seen a few practice starts. So coming through that first, these timings are not going to be right at all. But just coming off that start, looks like everyone got a clean start. As I say, everyone had a few practice runs at it while we're just waiting for the umpire launches to get up there. So we'll wait for the first proper splits coming off of this. But like we say, this is the first semi-final of the women's lightweight inter-single, and it'll be the top 3 that will proceed through to the A final.
Yes, we got Sam McCormick of Queen's Belfast in this one. She won the time trial. Alex Scrowcock of University of Reading came in 4th, but around about 10 seconds separating those two crews. So I think Sam McCormick of Queen's Belfast in lane number 4 should be the favourite for this one. See from our camera here at 1,000 metres as the athletes come charging down. And just about 2 minutes into their race, they'll be going through the 500 metres very shortly. Hopefully, we will be able to bring you the times as the crews come down the course.
So yesterday, lots of medals came from the Queen's Scullers, and like we were saying, the Queen's Sculler, Sam McCormick, was the quickest in the time trial. We'd expect, from yesterday, the middle lanes seem to be quick. That's the way they've seeded it typically, and it was sort of manifesting itself in the results. So we're expecting Queens and Reading to be pretty quick off the top here. These are the 2 crews in lanes 4 and 3 respectively. But then on that outside lane, De Montfort and Heriot-Watt, Cambridge and Birmingham will be looking to challenge for that 3rd available place.
So as we come up towards 1,000, it does look as though it's Sam McCormick of Queen's Belfast out in front, with Reading and Cambridge in lanes 3 and 2 currently sitting in the 2nd and 3rd positions. But we won't be able to tell absolutely for sure until they come level with our camera position at the 1,000 metres. It'll always be hard trying to place 6 crews across a lake, but no doubt that the leader in this field is Sam McCormick of Queens. They've had a fantastic regatta so far, especially on the sculling side. In the singles yesterday, they really raked in the medals, both in the men's heavyweight and lightweight events, and they're translating that now into the women's lightweight events today. So Sam McCormick absolutely annihilating this time trial, this semi-final so far, is sitting at least a good 4 lengths or so up on the rest of the field. Yeah, so an advantage there of around about 9 seconds over second place. So we can see Jodie Cameron of Cambridge, formerly of University of St Andrews, has done very well in the lightweight events for St Andrews in the past, now at Cambridge, and who's going up against Alex Rocock of Reading. Looking at those gaps, we haven't got any crew names allocated against those times, but 5 seconds separating second and third, and then about another 9 seconds going back to fourth. So it looks like those top 3 spots might be fairly well set.
Yeah, just from our commentary position looking down the course, it does look like lanes 2, 3 and 4 are the 3 crews out in front, so that is Cambridge, Reading and Queen's. But then I would say a fairly close battle going over on that far side between lane 5 and 6, so that's Emma Padfield of De Montfort and Joanna Kinder of Harriet Watt. So that's what we're seeing down the course at the moment. As we say, these times on the screen not exactly right at the moment. Usually they just have to shake out on the first race. But you can see, like, as these scullers move away from us, it looks like we've fairly established our 3 leaders. And are you surprised that Sam McCormick's not taking the foot off the gas?
I think she might have gone to the kilometre, done a race plan up to there, and then reassess. Because I think the worst thing you can do is try and sort of second guess yourself and think that you've got the job done before you've really finished it. So I would say now it looks like the rating has gone down a bit from the Queen's Belfast Sculler. So maybe get to the 1,000 metres, see, okay, no, I'm in a fairly good position here, and you can then just sit on the race, preserve your energy for the battles to come in the final. Where looking back at the time trial results, she was only 0.4 of a second faster than Leonie Kennedy from the University of Surrey, who we're going to see in the second semi-final. So any bit of energy that she can save now is going to be vitally important.
Yeah, and just speaking of Leonie Kennedy, you can see that in your picture-in-picture that the next race, that race featuring her, has gone off the start. So we'll pick that up a little bit later on, but you can see that race is now in action as well.
Yeah, just got those first times starting to come through from the 1,500 metre marker. So it is definitely still Sam McCormick of Queen's Belfast out in front. Cambridge and Reading, the 2 crews on the right side of your picture, they're still sitting in second and third. Jodie Cameron of Cambridge, Alex Grocock of Reading. It was Cambridge who were in front at the 1,000 metres. We'll see if that's still the case. We've got our second race already coming up towards 1,000 metres. So we'll just give a quick introduction to that one. So that's the second semi-final of the women's intermediate lightweight singles. Orlaith Sonner of Queen's, Elsa Martin of St Andrews, Erin Meredith of Birmingham, Leonie Kennedy of Surrey, Amelia Moole of Bath and Imogen Vale of Cardiff. They're just going through the 1,000 metre marker now as Sam McCormick of Queen's Belfast charges into the last 250 metres, still with a healthy advantage over Cambridge and Reading.
Yeah, Sam McCormick's taken control of this race from very early on and just controlled it all the way down. Rate of striking is definitely much lower now, just rowing long and strong to the line, conserving all that energy for the second race. None of these crews are going to be eliminated, so even the ones who don't come in the top 3 are going to race again. They're going to race in that B final. So De Montfort, Harriet Watt and Birmingham will be competing again in the B final. At the moment it looks like De Montfort, then Birmingham, and Harry and Watt is the order, but those will be racing again in the B final a bit later on. So you'll see in your picture, just coming to the finish line, it's going to be Sam McCormick banking that first, or taking that first place in the A final. Really, really composed row. Looking forward to see what happens in that A final. Just coming across now as well. So we've got our Cambridge Sculler, Jodie Cameron. And just coming into shot, you'll see the third place. It'll be Reading, Alex Grocock, just coming into shot now to cross the finish line third.
And just finishing off the field, we've got De Montfort in lane number 5 coming across ahead of Birmingham, and then it'll be Harriet Watt rounding out the field in this first semi-final of the women's intermediate lightweight singles. But the mentioned we were just starting our semi-finals a little bit behind time after the time trials, and our umpires are getting everything underway pretty quickly. So we had 3 races on the course all at the same time. So the second race of the day, the women's intermediate lightweight singles semi-final number 2, is already coming up towards 500 metres to go, and going through 1,000, it was Leonie Kennedy of Surrey who was in the lead. Went through it in 4:34, just ahead of Erin Meredith of Birmingham by around about 6 seconds. Then in third, it was Ailsa Martin of the University of St Andrews. Amelia Moule of Bath sitting in 4th, Orlaith Sonner sitting in 5th, and Imogen Vale sitting in 6th.
Yeah, just a quick shout out to Helen that was on the screens a moment ago from Birmingham. She thought she'd only get to the C final, so 5th in the first semi-final there. She'll proceed to the B final, which is phenomenal for her. But yeah, you can see in this next race, the 2 crews that finished 2nd and 3rd in the time trial are the 2 that are in control of this race. We've got Leonie Kennedy seeming to have probably a couple of lengths lead over Erin Meredith, who's just joined Birmingham this year and is going to be the women's captain next year. So a really good performance to hang your hat on so far. So those 2 seem to have quite a big lead over the next crews. You can see here. So the 2 crews far left and then bottom right of the screen, they're out in front. And just off to the picture on the right, I would say, would be the next Sculler. So the Sculler in 2 from St Andrews appears to be the 3rd one that looks to be going through, but is under a little bit of pressure from the crew in 5 from Bath.
Yeah, so very classy performance from these 2 Scullers out in front. No surprise from the time trial results that we're seeing. Surrey and Birmingham leading this one. Ailsa Martin's time from the time trial, around about 18 seconds slower than the University of Birmingham Sculler. So time trials done a pretty good job of seeding these semi-finals. And we've got Leonie Kennedy, who I think is also doubling up into the lightweight 4 for Surrey as well. So going to be a very, very busy day of racing for her, and I'm sure he's going to be wanting to conserve as much energy while still making sure she finishes in the top 3 of this race.
Yeah, so comfortably out in front, conserving energy. There's not a big whine to the finish, doesn't need to be. Same with the Birmingham Sculler, Erin Meredith. It's a good, comfortable 2nd place there, so probably about 3 lengths down on the winner. But both of those crews didn't really need to push through to the line. I think they'll be quite glad for that going into their final. Because the format has changed compared to, not last year, but previously, where the medal races happen immediately after the semi-finals. So there's not that big break in the day to recharge. So the more energy you can conserve through the semi-finals, the better, really.
So just seeing the rest of our field come across the line there in the women's intermediate singles. Going to have our last 2 Scullers just coming into shot in a second. And we've got Queen's Belfast closest to the tower, who's going to be just ahead of Cardiff University over on the far side, separated by the whole width of the course in that second semi-final of the women's intermediate single sculls. But almost straight away, our next race has is almost got 250 metres left to go. So we're going to go straight to that one. That is the first repechage of the Women's Championship single sculls. 4 crews contesting this one: Hazel Wake of Oxford, Lauren Madison of Reading, Bridget Kennedy of Cambridge, and Lara Britton of Reading. So the top 2 will go through to the A final to join the top 2 from the time trials. And it looks like it is the 2 in the centre, Reading University and Cambridge, Lauren Madison and Bridget Kennedy. I think Lauren Madison was in the Reading double that came second in the Champ Lightweight doubles yesterday, and Bridget Kennedy was in the Champ Lightweight double that she joined Imogen Grant that won gold. So we're no surprise to see these 2 out in front of this first repechage ahead of Oxford and the second Reading sculler.
Yeah, so those are the 2 scullers you can see here. Quite a comfortable lead as they come into the last 150 metres. Neither of these scullers are going to be having to wind up, so they'll be able to save as much energy as they can for that final that will be happening in about, I guess, an hour and a half, something like that. So not massive gaps between rounds at this point. So like we've been saying, the more energy you can save, the better. So if you've got quite a big lead at this point, it's nice to be able to just hold your position, get a decent lane in the final, and just row your way over to the landing stages.
So across the line there for Lauren Madison and then Bridget Kennedy of Cambridge. If there's no issues, those should be the 2 crews that go through to the A final, with Hazel Wake and Lara Britton just rounding out the field there. So races continuing to come thick and fast here today. The second repechage of the Women's Champ Lightweight Singles is already through the 1,000 metres. 4 more scullers here: Annabelle Renett of Royal Holloway, Gemma King of Cambridge, Miranda Clements of Cambridge, and Izzy Sellers of Durham. You can see them on your screen there, coming up towards 500 metres to go. Going to 1,000 metres, it was Miranda Clements of Cambridge ahead of Izzy Sellers of Durham, but only 0.6 of a second separating them. Much tighter field here, actually. Then it was Royal Holloway in 3rd and Gemma King in 4th, but only about 4 seconds separating the whole pack.
So yeah, unlike the last 3 races we've watched come through, there's no real obvious 2 out front. It is going to be 2 through from this, but just looking down the course, and as you can see on your screens, they're pretty much side by side, and 4 seconds is going to be just about a length or so. So if all the crews were within 4 seconds of each other, it's anyone's game at this point. So Royal Holloway, Cambridge, Durham, those are the 4 crews that are in the mix for this. You can see 3 of them on the screen at the moment. So you can see the 2 Cambridge scullers and the Durham sculler, but just out of shot to the right you've got the Royal Holloway sculler that you'll see as we just pan back a little bit. So all 4 of these scullers are definitely in with a shout at claiming one of those top 2 places. I mean, if I had to say who I thought was out in front at the moment, I'd probably say it was lane 4 just. So that's Miranda Clements of Cambridge. But beyond that, it's really, really close between lanes 2, 3 and 5.
Yeah, fantastic race here coming into the last 300 metres or so. Really not a huge amount separating all 4 of these scullers. Only 2 places available, and I don't think there's going to be a B final in the Women's Champ Lightweight Singles. So if they don't get into the top 2 here, this is going to be the end of their the end of this event, at least for these scullers. Some of them may be doubling up. We do find that a lot, especially with the lightweight events.
So actually Miranda Clements at the moment has just come out of lane and is behind the Durham Sculler Izzy Sellers actually. So it looks like the Durham Sculler in lane 5 is making the charge at the moment. We just get the change of colour of the buoy line, you can see just come into the screen at the moment, but it does give us an indication of who's ahead. So at the moment the Durham Sculler Izzy Sellers has got to that point first. Miranda Clements, bit of a steering correction, but is still holding second place, but is being put under pressure by Cambridge teammate Gemma King. So I'll pass over to Will just to call the last part of this race.
Yeah, Miranda Clements had that little bit of a steering issue, but has then put on an absolutely massive sprint, and I think is coming level with the Durham University Sculler into the last couple of strokes. They're going to come across the line pretty much neck and neck. We're going to need a photo finish to separate the two of them. That's just going to be for lanes though, because those two Scullers on the far side will go through. It was then Cambridge in third and Royal Holloway in fourth. So Gemma King just missing out there on a place in the A final of the Women's Champ Lightweight Singles. Great sprint there from Miranda Clements of Cambridge right at the end, potentially moving up past Izzy Sellers. Just get a replay as they come across the line now. Oh, really tough to call that. We'll have to wait for the official verdict on that one. The yellow line on your screen, while it is a very useful guide, a reminder it's not official. Our judges down beneath us in the finishing tower have access to a full photo finish system for occasions like that when they can't be separated by the eye.
So we hope for just as close a finish on the next race. We're going to move to men's beginner singles, first semi-final, and we have Surrey, Zachary Nagor. We've got Edinburgh, Lucas Leshinsky, Edinburgh again, William Lithgow, Strathclyde, Andrew Gorry, Cardiff, Sebastian Lilly, and Aberdeen, Hugo Studd. Those are the 6 crews that we have in this race. So it'll be 3 through. Now it does look like the front 3 Scullers in this race are reasonably clear of the next ones, but there is a move coming from lane 1, which is Zachary Nagor from Surrey trying to make a move. He's the most likely one to try and take the 3rd place off of the Sculler in lane 3, which is William Lithgow from Edinburgh. Currently in the lead is lane 2, that is Lucas Lachinsky from Edinburgh also, and it looks to me like second place right now is lane 4, so that'll be the Strathclyde Sculler, Andrew Gorry. So just a reminder, this is the men's beginner singles first semi-final. 3 will go through to the A final.
This has got a little bit of an air of last year to it. It's not quite on the same level, but not sure if you remember, Alex, when it was the Edinburgh women's beginners last year, and they had 6 athletes that completely filled out the A final of the women's beginner singles. Looking at the time trial here, so the University of Strathclyde Sculler, who's currently in second position, won the time trial, but then 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 5th were all Edinburgh University Scullers. So we've got 2 of them here. We've got actually these from the time trial. These are the slowest of the 2 slowest of the 4, William Lithgow and Lucas Lashinsky. Flipping the script from the time trial. You can see in lane 2, Lucas, he was 5th in the time trial, and he's overturned that to win this first semi-final very, very comfortably. It's then going to be Strathclyde University, Andrew Gorry going to come through in 2nd place, and the 3rd place going through into the A final will be William Lithgow of University of Edinburgh. Just missing out, coming into picture on the bottom of your screen, will be Surrey's Zachary Nagar, Hugo Studd of Aberdeen, and Sebastian Lilly of Cardiff are going to be rounding out this field in the men's beginner single.
So all 3 of those Scullers that went through ply their trade in Scotland. As we move to the 2nd semi-final, it could potentially be 3 Scullers from Scotland that go through again, but they would all have to come from Edinburgh, because in the 2nd semi-final, as we cut up the course in a moment, you'll see that's featuring 3 Edinburgh crews, a Durham crew, Nottingham Trent, and a Hartpury crew. So just onto your screen now. So for Hartpury in 6, we've got Keaton Lowes-O'Reilly. In 5 for Nottingham Trent, Eduardo Sorde. In 4 for Edinburgh, Cameron Baird. and 3. Also for Edinburgh, Evan Smith. In 2 for Durham, Samuel Ladd. And in 1 for Edinburgh, Will Richards. So those are the 6 scullers in this second semi-final of the men's beginner singles.
And going through the 500 metres, it is the 2 Edinburgh scullers in the centre of the course. They were 2nd and 3rd in the time trial. We've got Evan Smith just about a second ahead of Cameron Baird, his teammate. Then we got Nottingham Trent, Eduardo Sorde, currently in that 3rd position, but it's going to be close between him and Hartbury's Keaton Losa Riley for the final qualifying spot. But what a job again done by Mike Hughes, the Edinburgh beginner coach. They dominated the beginner quads yesterday, Edinburgh, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's the four scullers that we're seeing today that were responsible for that.
Well, I mean, it makes sense for beginners now to have more focus on sculling than we used to. 6 years ago, they added the quads event, and then they've also added the doubles event this year. So the singles has been in since 2009, but now there's all 3 disciplines for sculling. You know, you can do your single, your double, and your quad as a beginner. So it makes sense to go down that route for some programs, especially if you have the kit to do it and the coaching to do it. Rather than the more traditional approach of just throwing all your beginners into 8s and seeing who rises to the top.
Yeah, I mean, we can see that Edinburgh have got a pretty decent supply of boats, both of these Edinburgh scullers. Actually, no, so apologies, I was about to say both of them racing in Winged Hudsons. I think one's in a Wintec, one's in a Hudson. As they come to the 1,000 metres, great shot of our 2 Edinburgh scullers, absolutely neck and neck. Cameron Baird was in 2nd at 500. He's now popped himself into the lead just ahead of Evan Smith. And then about 8 seconds behind is our sculler in 3rd. That was Nottingham Trent's Eduardo Sorde previously. We'll wait for the crews to be allocated against those times. So it's now Durham University's Samuel Ladd who's moved up into that 3rd position. Nottingham Trent were in 3rd. They've dropped all the way down into last now. So not sure if there's been some technical misfortune that has befallen the sculler from Nottingham Trent that we haven't been able to see. So you can see in the bottom right of your screen our next race just about to get underway, which will be the first of the semi-final of the women's beginner Cox 4s. So we'll be catching up with that one as soon as the singles are finished.
200 metres or so of the race.
So our second semi-final of the men's beginner singles coming into its closing stages, and our two very impressive Edinburgh University scullers. It's Cameron Baird and Evan Smith. We got Cameron Baird in lane number 4 and Evan Smith in lane number 3. They're currently our leading two scullers. I think the final spot going into the A final is going to be Durham University's Samuel Ladd in lane number 2 and Hartbury's Keaton Loser Riley over on the far side in lane number 4, just going to be missing out. So coming across the line then for our two scullers from Edinburgh, so that's going to make 4 Edinburgh scullers in the A final, and then it's Durham University just coming across the line now. Then over on the far side of the course, Hartbury coming through in 5th, with the final Edinburgh University sculler, Will Richards, coming through in 5th, and Nottingham Trent in 6th. So our next event is underway, the women's beginner Cox 4s, and I'm delighted to say that I'm now joined in the commentary box by Olivia Capocci, who's going to be with us for the next couple of hours. Welcome, Olivia.
Thank you, Will. Thank you for having me. So as we have in this race, we have the women's beginner 4s, and in lane 1 we start with Southampton University. In lane 2 we have Queen's. In lane 3 we have Cambridge, 4 Surrey, 5 East Anglia, and in lane 6 we have Glasgow University. It'll be interesting to see what happens in this race. So in the lead we have Surrey at the moment, followed by Cambridge and then Queen's. So as we can see, there's been a bit of a lead with Surrey, taking it on, getting ahead. And then it seems that Glasgow and University of East Anglia are currently neck and neck, so it'll be interesting to see what happens there.
Yeah, we had a very impressive performance from the University of Surrey yesterday in the women's beginner 8. They won that by a really, really comfortable margin, and the two Surrey 4s were the two fastest crews in the time trial. This is the A crew, so no surprise, I think, to see them well out in front of this first semi-final of the women's beginner Cox 4s, looking like a really, really classy crew here, the crew in blue and pink.
So as we can see, it seems to be clear with the top three, with Surrey, then Cambridge, then Queen's University Belfast. So if they come through in those positions, those top three will be going into the A final, and then the bottom three will be going into the B final. But things can change as they're coming up to the last 100 metres. As you can see, Surrey, you'll see them on the left-hand side of the screen, coming up to this 100-metre mark, seeming to take it quite comfortably themselves.
Yeah, super classy row from this Surrey 4. Doesn't look like they're attacking the last 250 metres fully, able just to sit in front of their competition. We've then got Cambridge sitting in second. They had a very strong development crew on their men's side yesterday, and now they've got a strong women's crew as well. Then Queen's Belfast in third. So great shot there of our crew from Surrey just as they're coming up towards the finish line, and over the line for Surrey. Looking very, very strong, just paddling over the line, not even stopping. Then going to have Cambridge coming through in second place, around 18 seconds behind. Queen's Belfast coming through in third. They'll be the three crews going through to the A final. With over on the far side, Glasgow, and then the University of East Anglia coming through in fourth and the fifth, just separating themselves out slightly in the second half of the race. And it will be Southampton closest to the camera that will round out the field in this first semi-final of the women's beginner Cox Fours. So we've got the second semi-final of the women's beginner Cox Fours underway now, and as you can see, they're already through 1,000 metres. We've got York University in 1, Edinburgh in 2, Nottingham A in 3, Surrey B in 4, the University of West England in 5, and Durham University A in lane number 6. Looks like it's those crews in the centre, and probably no surprise based on the performance of the first Surrey crew, but it's Surrey again who are leading this one.
Yes, so we have Surrey in the lead here, followed by Nottingham and then Edinburgh University in third. They seem to be taking a bit of a clear lead, so it'll be good to keep an eye on that. It's interesting to see the changes that are made between the 1 kilometre mark towards the finish. The last 1k is a really important part of the whole course. It's where things can change quite rapidly.
Yeah, we were talking about this in some of the races yesterday, that I think you get to the 1,000 metres and there's been some crews that have been holding on for dear life to stay in contention up to the 1,000 metres, and then they may fade away slightly in the second half. And then other crews who paced it well are able to make their moves in the second half, and that's why you can see crews that are neck and neck going through the K, and then suddenly they're 10 seconds apart or so by the time they get to the finish. But this second Surrey crew, the Surrey B crew, looking really, really impressive. Great strength and depth from the Surrey crew, the 8s from yesterday, breaking up into 2 4s, and they've got a lead of 11 seconds going through 500 metres to go over the University of Nottingham, who were in second. And then it was the Edinburgh crew that were in third, just to the right of shot in their baby blue kit. They should be taking the last spot in the A final.
So we have Surrey still in the lead here, looking really clean, almost making it look easy. So they'll be coming up into the last 100 metres now, but I suppose they won't be going into a sprint finish because they want to be retaining as much energy as possible to take it through into that A final. But it'll be interesting to see the next one. So we've got coming up in second and third place. It seems like they are rather close, so we're looking at Baby Blues, who are going to be taking, it seems to be taking that third place, but they could take it up in the last 100 metres a little bit just to test themselves and see how they do. So coming through the finish line here, we have Surrey, and taking it nice and easy.
Yeah, so incredibly tight time performance from the two Surrey crews. I think they're going to have a really good race against each other later. See if the B crew can take a scalp against the A crew, as we see our Surrey crew there. Just had Nottingham and Edinburgh coming across the line in second and third positions. So those should be our A finalists. Then the University of the West of England coming through in fourth, York in fifth, and Durham University in sixth, rounding out the field in the women's beginner Cox 4s.
Next race on course is the women's beginner Coxless squats. In first place in lane 1 it is Baspar. In lane 2 it is Cardiff.
So straight back to the course now, and it's the first semi-final of the women's beginner quads. So we've had the 4s, now moving to the Coxless Sculling event. And we just seen our leading crews going through the 1,000 metre marker. Bath Spa, Cardiff, Durham, Edinburgh, Plymouth and Surrey are the 5 crews contesting this one, and it looks as though it's the 2 crews in the centre, Edinburgh and Durham. 2 crews have had a fantastic reputation in the beginner events over the last few years, currently out in front of this field.
Yes, Edinburgh are renowned for having a great start programme, taking on a lot of novices, and they often put out a lot of crews, which you will have seen through a lot of other races, especially in the single sculls category. So it'll be interesting to see what happens here. So we have Edinburgh in the lead, followed by Durham and then Plymouth in the first 3 places. Seems like it's quite a close one between the 3, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. They've just come through the 1,000 metre mark now, coming up to the 1,500 metre mark.
Yeah, and Cardiff currently sitting in 4th, just trying to work their way up into those top 3 positions, but they've got around about maybe just over a length or so to catch up on the crew from Plymouth, who are on the far side of the course. And it's so impressive to see these beginner quads, just as we see the second semi-final going off the start in the bottom right of your picture. We'll pick up on that race a little bit later, but I'm so impressed by the quality of these beginner quads. That sculling a crew boat can be pretty tricky, and these beginner crews make it look like they've been doing it for a lot longer than the 8 months or so since they started rowing this academic year. and especially for the one of the crew that has to be doing the steering. That I never really enjoyed steering a quad down a 2K course, and I rode for far too many years. So doing it when you're very, very new to it and trying to be responsible for the steering, maybe even doing the calls in your crew as well, it's a huge responsibility.
I completely agree on that. There's a lot of responsibility on that bow person in all of those lanes to just not just row well and technically well, but steer as well. And I was a bow steerer in a quad myself. That was my favourite boat to be in. And even when you're on a straight course like this, yes, you don't have to turn around as much, but there's still a lot of pressure because the wind could be coming in different directions, and it can easily go wrong. So you've got to keep it up.
Yeah, I almost found it a bit easier on a river where, yes, you do want to be taking a straight line, but there is a little bit more margin for error. When you're on a regatta course and you've got crews to your left and right, you've got buoys there. If you wander too far in one direction, you're really, really going to feel it, and your crew aren't going to be too happy with you. But I think we've seen that the Cardiff crew that were in fourth earlier, they've really, really pushed up, and Plymouth, I think, have struggled a bit in the second half of this race. So Cardiff have moved up into those top three positions. They're just to the right of shot at the moment. So we've got Edinburgh, Durham, and then Cardiff in lane number 2, who've pushed up into those top three positions.
Yes, so as we come up to finish, we've got Edinburgh in the lead, and then Durham and Cardiff. Durham and Cardiff seem to be fighting for that second place there, and something seems to be going wrong. I believe in the Cardiff crew, person at Toots might have caught a crab, but actually they brought it back, so that wasn't much of a hindrance. So we just had Edinburgh come through in first, we have Durham coming through here now in second, and then you can see Cardiff, and they saved the day there. Well done, Cardiff.
Absolutely, that really was a very, very strong recovery from the Cardiff crew. It'll be very easy in the closing stage of the race to let it fall apart, as we see our Edinburgh crew there. They won the men's beginner quads yesterday, so see if they can add the women's beginner quads. In fact, I think they've won all the quads events so far, because they won the women's intermediate and women's championship quads. So baby blue domination in the big sculling boats so far this weekend. Is just rounding out the field here. Will be Bath Spa in the women's beginner quads. But the second of those semi-finals already on the course, and coming up towards 1,000 metres. So we've got Keele University, Bournemouth, Queen's University Belfast, Plymouth A, Birmingham and Bath contesting this one. They're just coming up towards the 1,000 metres. Based on the time trials, we should see the crews from Plymouth and Queen's Belfast in the centre of the course. They were the second and third quickest in the time trial, just behind Edinburgh. And indeed we can see that it's Plymouth. Fantastic to see a Plymouth beginner crew doing so well, especially against some of these probably much bigger rowing universities. Coming up towards 1,000 metres, and currently they got clear water on the rest of the field. Maybe not quite clear water. Mercury in lane 2 actually just coming up alongside them, but around about a half a length lead for Plymouth over Bournemouth, with Queen's Belfast sitting in third.
I think it almost helps being in the middle of the mix there, because once you're in the thick of it, you know you're surrounded by others within the space of milliseconds, so it really helps you keep the pressure on and not lose heart when you're in the middle of the mix there. We have Plymouth, then Bournemouth and Queen's in the top three at the moment, all within the space of 2 seconds between them currently.
Yeah, really not too much separating them, although I think the Swans want to get involved in this race as well. Just taking off as the crews go past. Everyone, anyone who's raced at Nottingham knows that the Swans and the geese can be an occupational hazard. They tend to occupy the area around the 1,000 metre marker. and they don't particularly like rowing boats coming in and intruding on their peace and quiet. Those top 3 crews did have a bit of a sizable gap over the rest of the field, so I don't think they're going to be challenged too much unless there's any technical difficulties in the second half, with Birmingham, Kiel and Bath currently sitting in the bottom 3 spots. So just coming through the 1500 metre marker, and still not too much separating our top 3 crews in this second semi-final of the women's beginner quads. I think it's still Plymouth out in front, looking really, really strong here over Queen's, Belfast and Bournemouth, who were pretty close together when they went through the 1000. Having a look now, still can't quite pick out who's in front. You can see in the bottom right of your shots, we've then got our next race looking like it's just about to get underway. That'll be the women's intermediate singles. That's that box on the right, just slightly covering up our crews in second and third.
It's amazing how much work they've put in the last few months, these novice crews, to really get to the place where they are today. They should be very proud of themselves to even getting into this position, because starting in September really wasn't that long ago for many, and sculling can be seen as a bit technically harder to pick up than sweep. So this is looking quite interesting, as in second and third place, quite close here.
Yeah, so I think their Queen's Belfast crew have at least drawn level with Bournemouth, but I think it's going to be a good race. In the end, they're just going to be racing for lanes in the final. I think the crews that finish higher get the preferential lane for the final. But it's a relatively still day at Nottingham, so I don't think that's going to matter a huge amount. So it's just a good experience for these beginner crews to have a bit of a sprint to the line, see how they react when they're put under pressure from the crew alongside them. It's very, very different doing it in racing to doing it in training. But we've got our 3 crews there, Plymouth, Queen's, Belfast and Bournemouth, all nicely in a line coming up towards the finish. And as Plymouth come over the finish line, with Queen's Belfast in second and Bournemouth in third. And then a little bit of a gap back to the rest of the field in this second semi-final of the women's in the quads, as we see a delighted Plymouth crew. Huge congratulations going around the 4 scullers there, and a wave to their fans on the side of the bank. So very, very pleased Plymouth crew there, as Bath and Birmingham come across the line in 4th and 5th. And it will then be Kiel University closest to the finishing tower, rounding out this second semi-final of the women's beginner quads. So a quick replay as our leading 3 crews come across the finish line: Plymouth, Queen's and Bournemouth. But our next race is already through the 1000 metres. We can see them moving away there. It's going to be the first semi-final of the women's intermediate single sculls. So we've got Harriet Haysom of Oxford, Kirsty MacArthur of Glasgow Caledonian, Phoebe Hayden of Bath, Lydia Theos of St Andrews, Amy Lavelle of Surrey and Poppy Baker of Nottingham representing in this one.
So now just approaching that 1500 metre mark, we have the first of the women's intermediate singles, and it's Oxford University, Glasgow Caledonian University, the University of Bath, St Andrews, Surrey and
So as we wait for the latest splits to come through, I can tell you that when they went through 500 metres gone, it was the University of Nottingham over on the far side. You can see there on the left of your picture who was in front, and it looks as though she is still doing a pretty strong performance here. Yep, just going through the 1500 metres now, waiting for the lanes to be assigned against those crews. So it'll meet behind the scenes. We've got one person in each of the timing huts who has a little clicker. Every time a crew comes through, they press a little button, then they note down the lane order. They pick up a phone, they radio it, they radio it through, and then those lanes get assigned to those positions. So it just takes a couple of seconds for those to update, and there we go. We can see, so we've got Nottingham, St Andrews, Bath, Oxford, Glasgow, Caledonian and Surrey currently out in front of this first semi-final of the women's intermediate singles.
It seems to be quite close between Nottingham and St Andrews. It'll be interesting to see what happens in this last 500 metres that they're coming up to now, followed by Bath in third place currently. It's all about that last bit. If you know that it's going to be a close one, you don't know that you're too far out in front to relax, you've really got to keep it up. There's all the pressure on you. You cannot relax all the way to the finish.
Very composed looking scull here from the Nottingham University sculler, all the way over on the far side of the course. So they would have, here in lane 6, would have been down towards the bottom end of the time trial results. Just having a look now, yeah, so Poppy Baker came 9th out of 12 in the time trial, but overturning that into putting a really strong performance here in the semi-final.
Coming through the finish line, we have Nottingham taking a strong lead, and then St Andrews, and then Bath coming in third place. Strong row from everyone, as they were all fighting for that A final, and then coming through in fourth is Oxford, followed by Glasgow, and then finally coming through
So we have the second semi-final of the women's intermediate singles underway, and already coming up towards 500 metres to go. So we have Jessica Foster of Oxford Brookes in 1, Caris Price of Cardiff in 2, Finola Stratton of Reading in 3, Laura Mackenzie of Glasgow in 4, Catherine Watson of Nottingham in 5, and Lauren Octoloni of Manchester in lane number 6. Coming up towards 500 metres to go, and the two scullers in the centre. Those look at the splits from 1,000 metres. It was Glasgow and Reading, the two athletes that would have been that have set the pace in the time trial. Always have the fastest from the time, well, at least at the moment we have the fastest from the time trial, filling out the centre of the course. And updating to the 1,500 metre splits now. Still Glasgow with a very slender lead of 2 seconds over Reading. Cardiff sitting in third, just about a length further behind. And then Manchester over on the far side of the course, just a little bit adrift of that top three, so you're going to have to really work hard in the last 500 metres if they want to qualify for the A final. But in a single we can see some pretty big lead changes happen in the closing stages of the race.
It's nice to see clubs like Manchester in these AD semis, because they're really up and coming at the moment, and it just shows that the amount of training you put in will get you there. So we'll soon be coming up to the 100 metre mark. It's currently between Glasgow and Reading, quite close.
Yeah, I completely agree that it's fantastic when we're not just getting everything being dominated by the same universities. One of my favourite events yesterday was probably the win from Bristol in the intermediate eight. It's been a really long time since a sort of a first eight from a smaller university has beaten one of the second eights from one of the big universities. But a great race going on here in the centre between Reading and Glasgow. I think Reading pushing up level with Glasgow. They're sprinting for pride, and they're sprinting for the lanes in the final here, because both of these two scullers are definitely going to be going through to the A final. But it is Reading University's Finola Stratton that's just going to ahead of Laura Mackenzie, and then in lane number 2, Cardiff University coming through in third position. Then very tight for 4th, 5th and 6th with Manchester, Nottingham and Oxford Brookes rounding out the field in the women's intermediate singles. So next race is following it down very, very tight behind indeed, and it is the first semi-final of the men's intermediate doubles, race 231. So we've got James Swinburne of Nottingham, Tom Schwell of Loughborough, Shay Bradley of St Andrews, Nathan Timoney of Queen's Belfast, Robert Stewart of Queen's Belfast, and Jonas Friedrich of University of the West of England. These are doubles. They're obviously not they're not just single scullers. So there's a crew mate with each of those that I've just mentioned. But they're already into the last 250 metres of their race now, and we've got Queen's Belfast, who did so well in the sculling events yesterday, who are leading at the moment, ahead of the University of the West of England and St Andrews at the moment.
So coming into the finish here, we have Queen's coming in, and then we have UE following afterwards. In third place, thinking it's going to be St Andrews, and it's quite tight for the last 4th and 5th place. Who's going to make it? And it is Durham first, and then Loughborough.
Yeah, so Loughborough just poking themselves out in front of Nottingham, and then it's the second Queen's crew coming through in 6th position. But a very tight race there in the men's intermediate doubles. But Queen's Belfast continuing their strength in the sculling events. So straight on to the second semi-final of the men's intermediate doubles, already through the 1,000 metre marker. Manchester A in 1, Bath A in 2, Edinburgh A in 3, Reading B in 4, Strathclyde A in 5, and Reading A in lane number 6. Great shot there from our camera at the 1,000 metres as they row away from the halfway marker and up towards the all of the gazebos you could see on the north bank, and then all the boat park at the far side. Also got the next race, which is the Women's Championship Lightweight Coxless Fours repechage, just about to go off the start, so races continuing to come down at pace. We've almost caught back to time, which is very, very impressive by our athletes and our officials. So those lightweight fours off the start now. They'll be trying to chase down these doubles that are on the course. So coming through 500 metres to go, it looks like it is our crew from Reading University who were second in the time trial. They are out in front, and then I think it's Edinburgh in lane number 3 who are in second.
Now approaching the last 500 metres for the men's intermediate doubles, and your lineup today is Manchester, Bath, Edinburgh, Reading, Stratford.
Just hard to spot at the moment who is in third. I think it's probably likely to be the crew from Bath in lane number 2, just to the right of our shot, with Strathclyde University sitting in fourth.
It looks as though it's the University of Reading, B, followed by the University of Bath, and then in third position, the University of Edinburgh, currently holding those 3 slots for the A final.
So just through the 1500 metre mark, we still have Reading out in first, then Edinburgh, and then Bath Uni, followed by Strathclyde, Reading and Manchester. That is the current order, but things can change. There seems to be quite close between the top 3, only seconds in between, especially in between second and third place between Edinburgh and Bath. So we'll see if Bath have enough to take it on.
Last 250 metres to go, and it is still Reading B. Leading.
There will also be a bit of a fight between Strathclyde and Bath for that third place, because it all comes to this last 100 metres now that they're entering.
Yeah, it looks like Bath just on the right of your shot. They're going to be able to hold on to that second position over Strathclyde, but very impressive from Reading out in front. They're a Sculling focused university, don't ever compete in the sweep events, only in Sculling, so we often see them throwing out very strong doubles and quads, and this year no exception. So Reading B crossed the line in first position, just ahead of Edinburgh. It's then Bath that are going to come through in third to take the final spot into the A final, just missing out Strathclyde in lane number 4, with Reading and Manchester the last 2 crews in this time trial that will miss out. So we're going to go straight back down the course to our repechage in the Women's Championship Lightweight Fours. They're coming up towards 1,000 metres. Exeter, Nottingham, Oxford, Durham, Oxford and Bath.
So this is a repechage race, which means that the top 4 of these will be going through to that one and only A final.
And coming up towards the 1,000 metres, it looks as though it's the Oxford crew in lane number 3, currently leading over Durham University in lane number 4. Around about 3/4 of a length advantage for the crew from Oxford. Then I think it's the second Oxford crew in lane number 5 that were in third.
Exeter University, the University of Nottingham, Oxford University A, Durham University, the University of Oxford B, and the University of Bath over in lane 6.
Just waiting for those lanes to get assigned against those crews to be able to tell you who was in those all-important qualifying positions. Definitely Oxford and Durham out in front, the 2 crews that would have been fastest in the time trial from this field. The 2 fastest from the time trial get the honour of going straight to the A final. Yeah, so Oxford, Durham, Oxford, Exeter, Nottingham and Bath, but look, it's very, very tight between 4th and 5th. Exeter and Nottingham fighting for that 4th qualifying spot through to the A final. So we've got Exeter in lane 1 and Nottingham in lane 2. So the crews over on the right hand side of the lake that are going to be fighting it out.
So you can't quite see them in the shot just yet, but as it's moving out, widening out now, so you'll be able to see this race for the 4th position here.
So it does look actually if Bath over on the far side might be doing a little bit better than the our graphics might have been indicating, but it's very, very hard to tell at this distance. But those 3 crews in the centre, Oxford, Durham and Oxford, I don't think anyone can deny that they are the crews that are out in front of this one at the moment, and they can pretty much just sit there because they know that as long as they get in the top 4, they are going to be fine. So having a quick look at the time trial results from this one. So it was Cambridge and Surrey who took the top 2 spots. But it really, really was close between Nottingham and Exeter in the time trial. Just 0.6 of a second separating them. And although Exeter now have extended out a bit of a lead, so Exeter in 4th, and they now lead by 8 seconds over Nottingham and Bath.
This really will be a close one between Exeter and Nottingham. And it just shows that every single stroke counts in this. They'll be fighting all the way to the finish. All the pressure is on them to get through to this final. It also takes a lot for crew selection for 4s because they really need to ensure that the balance is there, the technique is there, and that every single person in that boat works well together. I'm sure they've gone through all sorts of seat racing and all sorts of ergs and time trials to get into that crew, so it all counts and it all comes up to this race here.
But certain it does, and we've got these 2 Oxford crews, of course. I mean, many of these lightweights should have been racing in the lightweight boat race against Cambridge just a few weeks ago. But we can see our leading 3 crews there, Oxford, Durham and Oxford. But Exeter on the near side of the course, actually, in lane number 1, have put in a really, really strong second half of this race. They might even be challenging that second Oxford crew. So Oxford across the line ahead of Durham, and then yes indeed Exeter down the bottom of the picture. They come through in the 3rd ahead of the second Oxford crew. Then over on the far side it's going to be Bath and Nottingham that round out the field.
Is the men's championship lightweight double sculls. In lane 1, it is Oxford Brooks University Harrison, Oxford University B. In lane 2, it is Durham University. In lane
So this next race now, we have the men's championship lightweight doubles. In lane 1 we have Oxford, we have in lane 2 we have Durham, in 3 Cambridge, 4 Strathclyde A, 5 Strathclyde B and 6 Queen's University Belfast.
So a very, very tough field here. The top two from the time trial went straight through to the A final. I believe was Reading and Edinburgh. So there's only 2 places available in the A final here, and it's Strathclyde University, Andrew Laird and Ben Parsonage. Ben Parsonage, who picked up a silver in the lightweight single yesterday, trying to get into the A final of the double, and then I think it's Cambridge in lane number 3 who are currently sitting in that second position. But Durham and Strathclyde B, they're going to be fighting hard in the second half of this race to try and get up into those top 2 spots. I don't know if we actually have a B final for this event, so it will be pretty savage for the crews that miss out on this, because getting into the A final for the Champ Lightweight double is not easy.
Just coming through the 1,000 metre mark. In first place, it is the University of Strathclyde A. In second place, it is Cambridge University. In third place, it is the University of Strathclyde B. In fourth place, it is Durham University. In fifth university, it is Queen's University B. And in sixth place, it is Oxford University B.
So for these doubles, we'll be having a very technical cruise here, very quick rate. There's a little bit of a slight headwind, but not too bad, nothing to put them off their plans. They would have planned these races out very carefully, so they're going to try and stick to it now and just see what happens in the last 1,000 metres. We're coming up to the last 1,500, or the 1,500 metre mark rather, with 500 to go, and we're just waiting for our order now.
So we've got Strathclyde A currently still out in front, ahead of Cambridge by around about 6 seconds. They've then got a 5-second advantage over the rest of the field. Durham currently sitting in that third spot. They're going to be in that agonising third position. That means they're going to miss out from the dangers in this race. You saw that some of the crews in the time trial went absolutely flat out to try and get in the top 2. Some of them maybe went a little bit easier, expecting themselves to be in the repechage. But the downside of that is you can then end up with a 1 repechage that ends up being really, really tough, and that you trying to get into the top 2 is really tricky. So this is an impressive looking Durham crew, but they are going to be missing out as it currently stands behind Strathclyde and Cambridge.
That's right, it's looking like Strathclyde and Cambridge are out ahead by quite a few seconds, so they'll be coming into the last 100 metres now. Strathclyde is. It'll be interesting to see how they take this. They're keeping the same rate, they're not taking it up, it looks like they're feeling comfortable right now.
Yeah, very impressive performance from both this Strathclyde and Cambridge crew. Huge amount of cheering on the bank to take these last 2 spaces into the A final of the men's championship lightweight doubles. And coming up to the line, it is Strathclyde A over Cambridge. Durham just dropping back slightly in the last few metres of this race, and it is going to be Queen's Belfast over the Strathclyde B crew. Durham dropping down into 5th, and it's then Oxford that wrap up the field in this first repechage of the men's championship lightweight doubles. And that's where I am going to leave you on commentary and pass you over into the very, very capable hands of Camilla Hadland, who is going to be with you for the next couple of hours. Don't worry, Olivia's not going anywhere, so that's goodbye from me for now, and enjoy the rest of the semi-finals.
That's right, I'm staying right here. So in this next race, which is coming up now, we have the men's championship lightweight doubles. Lane 1 we have Oxford, lane 2 Durham, Cambridge, Strathclyde. Sorry, apologies. We have this race now. So it's another men's championship lightweight doubles. In lane 1, we have De Montfort, 2 Newcastle, followed by Reading, Oxford, Nottingham, and Newcastle in this race.
So we're looking for another 2 boats to find their way through to the A final of that championship lightweight double sculls. As we just said in the previous race, a really competitive field, always is in the lightweights, and this championship double scull, a sort of reflection of the lightweight doubles we get at the Olympics. So lots of these athletes will be wanting to carve that pathway through to the Olympic Games. Out in front at the moment, well, it looks like it's Oxford University, just going through the 1,000 metre marker, and they've got a fairly commanding lead over Reading University's crew, stroked by Alistair Holborough in the lane next to them in lane 3. I think they hold second for now, and again Nottingham University, well, over a length back, and with only 2 spots through to the A final here, Olivia. I think 5 seconds is quite a margin to make up, even with 1,000 metres to go.
Absolutely, it's quite a bit of a distance there. So yeah, just a reminder that it's the first 2 in this repechage that are going through to that A final. So we're just looking to find out our ranking here.
So yeah, we've gone through 1,500 metres, so 500 metres to go, and you'll see the times being populated in the top left-hand side of your picture. That is Oxford University in the middle of your screen there, in the dark blue, the very historic dark blue of Oxford University, and indeed they are now cruising 7 seconds above Reading University. You can see the distance they've got back to Reading on the right-hand side of your picture there, just above the inset that we've got of the start. And just with 2 boats going through, I think that's fairly comfortable. I mean, Newcastle over on the left-hand side of your picture from lane number 6, and they're out of picture in lane 2 on the right-hand side, are closing in, but still definitely a fair margin and a fair gap for them to make up if they want to make the final.
That's right, it seems to be quite comfortable lead with Oxford and Reading at the front there, followed by Newcastle, then Newcastle again, and Nottingham, and then De Montfort.
So yeah, 3rd place, you can't quite see in your picture here, it's just at the bottom of the screen. Newcastle will come into shot in just a second. No doubt as to who our leaders are, Oxford University, and the rest will be eliminated, because in Championship there is no B final. It's A final or bust here for these athletes, and a real sprint finish here. You can see Newcastle closing in on the bottom of your screen. I think Reading have got enough in the tank to hold them off for that 2nd spot through to the A final, but Oxford are going to cross the line with some comfort here, with energy in reserves for their A final. A great repechage win for them. Wow, overlap by the end between Reading and Newcastle. That was some real guts there by the Newcastle crew, Olivia.
Absolutely, and then the last 2 that just came through, the last 4th and 5th that just came through there, had a bit of a battle as well, which was very interesting to watch. Great effort from everyone there. And then coming through in last place here is De Montfort. Also a very strong race from them.
Yeah, great to see the likes of De Montfort continuing to step up to the championship level. They've got a lot of really talented beginner athletes. They won medals at beginner in the last couple of years. That translates to intermediate, and then in some cases up to the championship level. So great to see some new universities up here contesting championship, because it is the likes of, you know, Newcastle, Oxford, Reading. We see them consistently in the sculling events especially, but De Montfort, fantastic. Hopefully we see them year on year, and they will kind of progress to the A finals in years to come.
Yeah, definitely, and it just shows that with the right amount of training and coaching, things can come together and work out. And sometimes those high performance clubs that have lots of money going through the funding and everything, sometimes that isn't enough.
Yeah, exactly. It can only get you so far, right? And I think, it's what's that saying about talent? Hard work, talent doesn't, account for hard work or something. There's a saying along those lines, isn't there? So we're now going from small boats to big boats, from championship to beginner, so from those very experienced athletes right down to those at the start of their rowing career. And this is the first semi-final, AB semi-final of the men's beginner 8. So just a reminder, 3 to qualify through from our AB semi-finals into the final later on this afternoon. In lane 1, Bath A. In lane 2, we've got Nottingham. In lane 3, Durham. In lane 4, York. In lane 5, Bristol. And in lane 6, Manchester A.
It'll be interesting to see these beginner 8s here, because often when the adrenaline kicks in and you're at the start line there, things can go wrong. It's that first 250 metres that's the most important part almost, and if you're on your way after that, then that's brilliant. But sometimes there can be crabs caught, there can be all sorts going on, so it'll be interesting to see what it's like at the start line there.
Yeah, you can just see the flag as well on our safety launch here, just fluttering in the breeze. It is a little bit of a headwind we've got here today, so navigating onto those snake boats as a beginner can be quite difficult. A lot of these athletes would have raced in the 4s yesterday, in those beginner men's 4s, and now jumped into the 8 for day 2. Durham certainly were one of those medalists in the 4s yesterday, and they're using that to their advantage here in this first semi-final. With a good day 1 under their belt, they are certainly performing very well here. They had 4 seconds advantage over York at 500 metres, which is some distance in an 8, and you can see there they're trying to break clear of the overlap from York that sit just to their left hand side. They're the ones in the middle of your picture at the moment. Now the fight for third, now this is going to be interesting. I think at the moment Nottingham are being overtaken by Bristol, because it says here Nottingham were in third going through the 500, but going through the 1000 I think that's been flipped round. I think Bristol have started to push through into that third and very important spot through to the A final.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see what happens between Nottingham and Bristol in this race, as there are only 3 seconds currently between them. 1 second between them now, which is actually very close, so it'll be good to see. It's hard for them to keep their eyes on the boat though, because when you're so close and you're neck and neck with the crew alongside, you've got to make sure, and the Cox has got to make sure the focus stays inside the boat.
Yeah, absolutely right, Olivia. I think the other thing to bear in mind is they've got a lane separating them. They've got Durham in the middle. Durham in a really nice, advantageous position where they can look back at what the rest of the field are doing. And Nottingham and Bristol, they're not quite sure how, with a full lane in between them, it's going to be really hard to judge where they are. And I certainly couldn't even tell from the pictures from the screen that Bristol were behind Nottingham still at the 1000 metres. So they are clinging on. It is still Nottingham in third place, but you can just see the blade work there on the right hand side from Nottingham just getting a little bit splashy, getting a little bit tired. And like you say, I think with beginners, that maturity of race pace, not going too wild in the first 500 metres, can really start to tell later on.
Definitely, it'll all show in this last 500 metres that they're coming into.
So Durham still leading the way, holding on to that advantage that they built in that first 500 metres, and sitting there. They're not expending any more energy than they need to stay on top of the field. They've got that vantage point being out in front where they can look back. One of the advantages of rowing, actually, one of the only sports where if you're leading, you can look back on the people that you are beating. But York, they're in second place, and this fight for third still hotting up here, Olivia. I think it's maybe gotten a little bit broader for Nottingham. They've managed to eke out a bit more of an advantage over Bristol, but they're using quite a lot of energy to do that.
Yes, it seems that fight between Nottingham and Bristol, Nottingham might have just pulled away a bit more with a few seconds in between now. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in this last 100 metres, as we've clearly got Durham taking the lead, then York, and then Nottingham so far.
Yeah, and that push from Nottingham's actually pushed them right back to try and get a bit of an overlap with York in second place. So they've been trying to race towards second, which has pushed them away from fourth, and they're wanting to stamp on that third and final spot through to the A final. It's been never in doubt for Durham University. They are being pushed towards the end here by York, but they don't need to do too much. It's going to be about half a length over the finish line to give them the top spot through to the A final from this semi-final. Provisionally, York good to keep that overlap with Durham. And Nottingham there, now over a length from Bristol. Considering how close that was at halfway, that was a really good move there from Nottingham in the final half of this race.
So we have Bath coming through the finish line now in 5th place, and Manchester are on the course still. Good effort from both clubs. It's always hard when you're left behind because you can't see anything, so you don't know where you stand and you can't look behind you in the boat. So Manchester just coming through here now into the 100 metres.
So our final crew there, Manchester University, to complete that first of the AB semi-finals. For the men's beginner 8s, they'll progress through to the B final with the other remaining bottom 3 places, and there is your final order in the top left-hand side of your screen. Unofficial, of course, until we've had these results rubber stamped by our umpires, but it all looked like a clean race to me. And then we'll find out who will join Durham, York and Nottingham in the A final in just a moment's time.
So we now have the second semi-final for the men's beginner 8s. In lane 1 we have Cambridge, in lane 2 we have Imperial, 3 Queens, 4 Liverpool, 5 Exeter and 6 East Anglia. It'll be interesting to see what happens in this race. It's the beginner 8s, and it's nice to see clubs like Liverpool. That was my old club, and it's good to see them up in the mix there for the AB semis.
And in quite a good qualifying position, it looks like, as well. They're in lane number 4, which is one of the top seeded lanes. Just to explain, if you're new to rowing, you're tuning in to watch your son, daughter, child, friend who's competing here at BUCS Regatta this weekend. All of these athletes have completed a time trial this morning. From the time trial, they've then been seeded into these semi-finals. And what we do often in rowing, if the wind conditions are nice and straight down the course, is we'll put the fastest crews in the centre of the lake and work outwards from the time trial. And that's what we call a chevron, right? We should have it's like an arrowhead moving down the course with the fastest crews in the middle and moving outwards. And so Liverpool in lane number 4, we should expect good things from them in this race.
So yeah, a lot of them competing in these 8s would have been in the beginner 4s yesterday, so they might even prefer going into a more steady boat. It'll be interesting to see what happens here, as we would expect the arrowhead, wouldn't we, from the one seated in the middle of the course, but often that can change, especially with beginners, because there's always so much going on.
Yeah, and it's very different being in a time trial to being side by side, right? So I think being able to race, and we've got a really close race here for first between Queen's Belfast and Liverpool. It's Queen's Belfast on the nearer side of your picture. It's Liverpool on the further side of your picture, and then that looks to me like Imperial College in third position. But Liverpool was second overall in the time trial, but only less than a second separating them from Queen's Belfast, who sit in the lane next to them. And indeed, through the halfway mark, you can just see how close that is in the top left-hand side of your picture. 0.6 of a second put Queen's Belfast in the lead here, but Liverpool certainly will not be giving up. 3 spots through to the AB semi-finals, and in the hot seat at the moment, Imperial College London, with quite a cushion actually back to Exeter. A good 4 seconds there that they've got to play with. I don't think they'll be in any danger, but stranger things have happened. But yeah, this is going to be awesome racing here at the front of the field between Liverpool and Queen's Belfast.
Yeah, this is definitely very interesting. There's only 8 seconds between all of the crews. And we still have Queen's University Belfast in first, then in second place Liverpool, and third Imperial College London.
Through the 1,000 metre mark, it was Queen's University Belfast in the lead, followed by the University of Liverpool. In third place, it was Imperial College London A. Fourth place, the University of Exeter. Fifth place, Cambridge.
So Queen's University Belfast are on a little bit of a run here. They decided to push through Liverpool at that halfway point in the second 500, and they seem to be extending here, which, as I say, considering Liverpool were the faster of the two in the time trial, this would be a real result for them and their coach Megan Hunter, the coach of the Queen's University Belfast beginners cruise. And they certainly are on a bit of a run through the third 500, a very important quarter for rowers, and we were discussing this yesterday actually on the live stream about the third 500 is one of the most difficult things to get right in rowing, because it's neither, it's the point where it's neither endurance nor a sprint, and it's where it starts to hurt. So for beginners especially, it shows where the crews that have got a real kind of maturity to their racing and have been coached really well to deal with that pain, as it were, they tend to relish in this.
Yes, it's often described as the pain cave, that section of the race. And yes, so you can really tell on races like this which crews have had more water time together, have all been together in that training, because it's all about focusing on controlling your breathing. As the speed gets ramped up, as the rate gets ramped up, you've really got to control all other aspects of it and stay strong.
Well, Queen's University Belfast staying strong here through this final 250 metres, the last minute of the race or so, and they're continuing to open out on Liverpool. They've not just got a great third 500, but a great sprint as well, and some great coordination actually. You can see the hats that they're wearing reflect the Queen's University Belfast stripes, the blue, green and black. They've managed to coordinate through the boat. That little bit of free speed, as it were, has given them 3/4 of a length over Liverpool. That's going to feel very good, and they're going to be confident going into this afternoon's A final that they can overturn that result from the time trial. The University of York, who were in the other semi-final with Durham, also up there in the time trial. It's going to be very close still for that third and final place through, but Imperial, as we predicted, holding on ahead of the University of East Anglia. It's then going to be over in fifth, Exeter, ahead of Cambridge University A, and those remaining 3 crews will go through to the B final provisionally.
What a great race from all of them there, all quite close within the space of 8 seconds between all of them. And it was also quite close between first and second too.
So that was the final. That was the final semi-final we've got here of the morning. We've got 2 more repêchages to go. My apologies. No, we've still got more semi-finals to come. I'm getting ahead of myself here in the commentary box. So next up, we've got the repêchage for the men's championship Coxless fours. London in 1, London B in 1, Newcastle A in 2, Imperial in 3, Durham in 4, and Edinburgh in 5. And that is a great shot there of Durham University going through halfway with clear water over and above their local northeastern rivals, Newcastle University. And this is an age-old battle here, Durham versus Newcastle in the Championship men's events. And for many years now, it's been Newcastle that seemed to have had the edge. I was at Durham University, well, I hate to say, almost 10 years ago now. And at that point, Newcastle have been on the up and up. They've been such a strong crew. Prior to that, Durham very strong through the 2000s. But it seems like Durham University are back on the upturn, and here leading Newcastle by a length and a half. And we've got 2 qualifiers through to the A final. So at the moment, it looks to be the 2 London-based universities, the 2 southern universities in this repechage. London and IC missing out, and Edinburgh I can't quite see in the picture. Edinburgh should be over in lane number 6. It says that they're in 3rd going through the 1,000, so we'd expect them to be just ahead of UL and IC, who are in shot at the moment, but we'll be able to see them in just a second's time. There they are, look, they are in the race just on the left hand side, sat behind Newcastle.
From the angle here, you can see that it is quite close between all of them, and it will be quite a fight towards the end. We currently, as we said earlier, had Durham in the lead with Newcastle followed by Edinburgh. So just a reminder for those, there are the first 2 are going into the final there. So this will be a big battle for those first 2 places.
I think Durham have seen the danger and have started their sprint early. Just past 500, they've opened up even more clear water between themselves and Newcastle. They don't want to get involved in that second place fight between Edinburgh and the Blue Star, because Edinburgh all the way over from lane number 6 there on the left hand side of your picture here in the baby blue. You can see how they've been creeping up and up and up through this middle section of the race, and along, they're pulling IC with them, and I think Newcastle are really going to have to watch out here.
Yeah, Newcastle definitely going to have to keep that pressure on there. Durham seem to have pulled off quite a bit from Newcastle, interestingly. So if you look in the screen there, you can see Durham on the left-hand side in purple.
Yeah, but we know Newcastle have got a good sprint on them. Certainly, I think Durham won't be too worried. They've been keeping their powder dry, keeping the rate nice and consistent. Newcastle having to put in a sprint to separate themselves from Imperial and Edinburgh, who smell blood. They want to go for that spot through to the A final. If they miss out here, there is no further race for them. There is no B final in Championship. But I think at the moment they've left it a little bit too late. It's Durham coming through, the Red Boys now into the final 10 strokes with a comfortable lead, and actually they take the rating down through the final few strokes just to allow Newcastle to move up on them a little bit, but a comfortable victory there. Newcastle are only just going to keep their stern clear through the line of the chasing boats from Edinburgh and Imperial, but this is going to be a close finish for 3rd.
Yes, that was so interesting for 3rd place between Edinburgh and Imperial. They really, Imperial started to ramp up the pressure and put it on Edinburgh. But that was a very strong race, and well done to Durham and Newcastle, who've made it through into that final.
Love to see it. As a northeastern girl, Olivia, I feel like you're with me here. Great to see 2 crews from the northeast. As a Durham alumni myself, getting through to that Championship A final.
Absolutely, yes. Being from Newcastle myself, it's so good to see those crews. And wherever you go in rowing, you always see people that you almost live down the road from. It's awesome.
Yeah, and the thing about BUCS Regatta is we always get so much support, and Newcastle especially, I must give a shout out to how good their support is always here at this event. If you hear any cheering through the live stream, through our sort of ambient sound, I bet you it's mostly the Blue Star here at the finish tower shouting on their crews. Well, we won't linger too much on that previous repechage of the Championship men's Coxless fours. We're now on to the second repechage, so once again only 2 crews to go through from these 4. Our line-up here: Nottingham in 2, Newcastle C in 3, London A in 4 and Newcastle B in 5.
So yeah, this is going to be an absolutely cracking race. We currently have Nottingham in the lead, followed by London, then Newcastle, and Newcastle again. So there's really not much between them at all, is there, Camilla?
Yeah, and I think just going through 1,000, those top two crews have just split round. So UL just coming through Nottingham on their home water. It's going to be Newcastle, though, that are in the hot seat. They're sandwiched in the middle. They've got UL to their left, Nottingham to their right, and they're currently in the spot that would see them eliminated from this championship final. But I must say, impressive to see this is actually Newcastle's C crew that are attempting to get into the A final on their place. You know, it's very doable. They've got another 1,000 metres to run out. They're only half a length off being in first, essentially. You know, first and second are level at the moment. You can see that from the times there. But that shows some depth. You know, they've also got a crew in the Coxless as well. So this will be Newcastle's third crew, essentially. And they are in with a shot of an A final place here.
That's right, Newcastle seem to be dominating this race here, which is very nice to see. Just a reminder that this is also a repechage race, so the first two places go straight through to that A final, so the pressure's on here, especially when you've got a race with only 4 boats in. It feels like there's more pressure.
Yeah, and this would be a real turnout, actually. Having a look at the time trial results from this morning, Newcastle C was actually faster than both their A crew that was in the other rep and faster than the University of Nottingham, who we've got here on the screen in second place at the moment. So if Newcastle can... this Newcastle crew actually was the faster through the time trial, so we shouldn't be so surprised, actually, to see them fighting for a place. It's UL, I think, still with a 1 second advantage over Nottingham, who in turn have a 1 second advantage over Newcastle C. These three crews are going to leave it right down to the wire, right down to their sprint. This is exactly what they'll have trained for, though, to be in this kind of situation with less than a boat length separating them from an A final space, and it's where they're really going to have to test themselves under pressure in the final 250 metres. One of these crews, UL, Newcastle or Nottingham, is going to miss out on an A final place.
That's right, in this race they have to treat it as if it's the last one. Everything has to go into it, every last bit of energy just to get into that A final, and then they'll face it then.
This is going to be a stunning 200 metres in this, the repechage of the championship Coxless men's fours. It's been UL and Nottingham with the advantage of those two places for the last 1,800 metres, but Newcastle with a very characteristic sprint. The rating goes up, the legs are going to be hurting now into the final red buoys, and I think with this stroke they're going to come through, these two crews. Nottingham have managed to find an extra gear, and in fact I think Nottingham are in a shot here, in with a shot of getting the win. Only 2 places through to the final. 3 crews, London and Nottingham, hang on to Newcastle's incredible sprint. We'll wait for those provisional results, but that is one of the best repechages that we've seen here today, Olivia.
What a fantastic finish there, so very close. Obviously it'll have to be confirmed by our umpires as well.
So here's a replay of that repechage place. You can just see how close it is between Nottingham and Newcastle for second place, and in fact between Nottingham and University of London for the win. But you can see there the times in the top left hand side of your picture. Wow, 0.4 of a second separating London and Nottingham and Newcastle. They'll be absolutely devastated. They gave everything for that.
Yeah, milliseconds, it really is milliseconds, and anything can contribute towards that from throughout the race, but I'm sure all of those crews gave that everything, so well done to them. So in this next race now, for the men's intermediate fours, AB semis, we have in lane 1 Imperial, lane 2 London, 3 Glasgow, 4 Bristol, 5 Oxford Brookes and 6 Newcastle. Now this will also be a very interesting semi-final to see who goes through into the A final. Just a little reminder for those who are new to rowing, those who place in the first 3 go straight to the A final, and those who place in the last 3 go on to the B final.
And we've got Bristol out here leading the charge once again ahead of Oxford Brookes. Now, Bristol had a sensational day yesterday, winning the intermediate men's eights. It would have been the first time in a long time that they'd have done this. So coming through halfway, leading out the likes of Oxford Brookes, leading out the likes of... who else have we got in this race? Imperial College, London, UL. They are really having a fantastic BUCS Regatta, probably one of the best in their history, and continuing it on to day 2, trying to replicate that gold medal they got in intermediate eights. So I think the times in the top left-hand side of the picture are slightly off in that we can see from the screen Bristol are absolutely in the lead there in lane number 4. Then behind them we do have Oxford Brookes and London tied for those second places, very, very close indeed, a second separating them, and Glasgow also trying to get into the mix here. That would be another really impressive turnaround for Glasgow University. We don't often see them up here trying to haul over the giants like Oxford Brookes and UL, so that would be a great result for them. But this Bristol crew, I'm sure it will be 4 of the guys that won in that 8 yesterday. They are 3 seconds up, which is equivalent to a length or so actually, at the 1,000 metre marker, and all they have to do now is sit back and hold on, Olivia.
That's it. It's about holding on to that place and not letting it go at all. So just to confirm, we have Bristol in the lead, and then London, and then Oxford Brookes.
And Bristol, winners of the time trial, they won it by a second over the University of Surrey, who we'll see in the next semi-final. And behind them, it was then a real chunk back to Exeter and Glasgow. Now we've got Glasgow in this race in lane 3. Oxford Brookes, I think, probably cut it a little bit fine through the time trial. Maybe didn't push quite as hard as Glasgow or London to be able to get into this semi-final. But they're really now starting to show their colours in this side-by-side racing, and they sit in second place. They're happy to be sat in second place because that would give them a ticket through to the A final and through to the medals. But where the danger lies is still London, currently sat in third place alongside Glasgow, who have nothing to lose, absolutely nothing to lose. They're going to treat this final 250 metres like it was their last race, like you said earlier, Olivia. They're not in shot at the moment, but we will see them powering through, because that's where the real race is for the third and final spot through to the A final. You can see it there on the right hand side of your picture. London trying as they might to fend off Glasgow University.
Yes, if you can't hear it on the commentary, we can confirm it's very loud as everyone is cheering everyone on towards this finish. They're coming through this last 100 metres to go. We have Bristol in first place. They seem to be comfortably taking the lead there, so they'll not ramp it up too much at the end. Followed by, it looks like it's going to be very, very close between Oxford Brookes and London, so we'll keep an eye on that one. So there it is. So we had Bristol, followed by London, followed by Oxford Brookes. Yeah,
and I must say a really commendable effort by Glasgow there, actually. They put London and Oxford Brookes through their paces. It wasn't quite enough in the final minute, but certainly put them under pressure and wore them out, because their final will be in only a couple of hours' time, even less than in some cases. So quite a short turnaround, quite a short rest before these guys will be up racing for the medals in the A final. So Bristol, London and Oxford Brookes, we'll see them in the A final later on today, providing our umpire is happy with those results. Glasgow, unfortunately, demoted to the B final, but they will get one more side-by-side race today. Now we're on to the next of these semi-finals. This is the second semi-final to find out who will be joining those three crews in the A final. And Surrey, who were our second place overall in the time trial behind Bristol, well, a similar story in this race. They've managed to get out to a length lead, currently ahead of the crew next to them in lane number 2. That's Exeter University. There's still overlap though, much closer here at the front of the field than we saw in that last race with Bristol. And through halfway, there's going to be a real charge here by Edinburgh, I think, to try and claim second spot. It's overlap all at the front of the field here, and you can just see how close the times are there, Olivia.
So yes, we have Surrey in the lead, followed by Exeter and then Edinburgh in the top 3 here. Now there's only about 2 seconds that differentiates between Surrey and Exeter, and then 1 second between Exeter and Edinburgh. So it'll be interesting to see what happens here as they all fight for the top 3 spaces there.
And it'll be interesting to see the tactics as well, Olivia, because some of these crews will want the win. They'll want the centre lanes in the A final later on this afternoon, and some will just be happy as long as they've got a place in the A final. They won't care. So with Edinburgh being so close to Exeter, I don't know whether they're going to try and sprint for the second place, you know, because it doesn't make a difference, right? If they're in the A final, they're in the A final. Or if whether they will just hold third, hold off Oxford Brookes, who are 3 seconds behind them at the moment, so about a length. You can see that on the right-hand side. We've got Brookes furthest to your right, Edinburgh next to them on the left, and they've got about a boat length gap to play with in order to keep their spot through to the final. We've also got to keep eyes on York. They had a really good time trial. They finished over in 7th, so again, that would have been just outside. If we'd have done the A finals on the time trial, the top 6, they'd have just missed out. So we know that they're going to be contenders for the final spot through, but we don't, at this point in time, it doesn't look like they're going to challenge Oxford Brookes.
So they're all coming through with 500 metres to go, and this is when the lactic acid really kicks in. It's really hard just getting to the last 500 metres. It's just pushing through and finishing it off, and like you said, Camilla, it'll be the top 3 going to the final, but it's some people just want to get to the final, you know, it doesn't matter where they place, they just want to be there.
Now, one thing I do want to point out, we can't see them on our screen at the moment, but Oxford Brookes are just off the right-hand side of this picture that we've got, and they are closing in on Edinburgh and Exeter, and that wouldn't surprise me at all with the calibre of Oxford Brookes. They are closing in. The last 200 metres for them is going to be electric as they make up at least half a length now on Edinburgh and Exeter. In fact, they're putting them in real danger here. I don't think Surrey have anything to worry about. They've still got that length over Exeter. Edinburgh sat just snug behind Exeter, but Oxford Brookes off your picture are charging. We might see their bow ball creep into shot in just a second, and they are trying to wrestle through to that all-important 3rd place ahead of Edinburgh. They might just run out of water. We're in the red boys now. It's Surrey followed by Exeter and Edinburgh, but Oxford Brookes with the late charge. You can see them here, bow ball creeping into shot at the bottom of the picture. I think it's going to be too late, and final 5 strokes here for these crews. It's going to be over the line. Surrey 3/4 of a length ahead of Exeter. Edinburgh just stopping before the line, very dangerous there, because Brookes right on their toes, but not enough from Oxford Brookes to make the A final of this men's intermediate Cox 4.
No, not enough, but they definitely put that pressure on Edinburgh there, and that was such an interesting finish, such a fun race.
That's what BUCS is all about, right? There was a huge amount of crews, I think almost 60 crews in this men's intermediate Cox 4, and it all comes down to this close racing to get you into the AB semi-finals. It just goes to show how competitive it is here. Out of 60 crews, only 6 can make the final, and that's what separated the top 4 crews there, with Oxford Brookes at the bottom just missing out.
Yeah, and it's also good to mention just the difference between the Cox fours and the Coxless fours is that Cox can make such a difference, can't they? You know, just for every single second, they can really help you ramp up that pressure, especially in the last 500 metres. It's when their job really comes into action.
Yeah, absolutely, and we're going to stick with Cox boats, we're going to stick with Cox fours as we move from intermediate to championship. So if you're new, joining us here on the live stream, this is the championship, the next level up. This is the top end, the elite athletes at university sport now, going for spots in the A final. So this is a repechage. It is 5 through from these 6 through to the A final. So 1 crew will be eliminated, and my word, that is a BUCS lineup if ever I saw one. Edinburgh in 1, Oxford Brookes in 2, Durham in 3, Imperial in 4, Newcastle in 5, and London in 6. I think we've ticked off all the sort of big universities there in this championship men's Cox 4 repechage. Now, looks to me like we've got the University of London over in lane number 6 with the lead at the moment. It's then a tight little battle here in the centre of the field between Edinburgh, Newcastle and Imperial. We'll wait for the times, those intermediate times at 1,000 metres to see just where they're at. I think it's UL followed by Edinburgh and then Imperial sandwiched in the middle there, battling it out with Newcastle. But they know only 1 crew to be eliminated, and as it stands, I can't see Durham or Oxford Brookes B, and it looks like they're just off the back of this field.
Yeah, definitely. This is going to be a very powerful race with all of those high performance clubs in the mix. Now, it's going to be a different one because nobody wants to be in that last position. It's okay if you're in the top 5 because you go through to the final because this is a repechage, but being in that last position, nobody wants to be there.
Yeah, so Durham in the danger zone here in lane number 3. They're right in the centre, which again, like we said from the time trials, you'd have thought centre lanes were the fastest qualifiers through to this repechage. But, you know, smaller events, there's mind games to be had in the time trials, you know, people keeping things back for the side-by-side racing. So I suspect that's what a lot of the other crews have done here. Durham are going to be targeted, eyes on Oxford Brookes. They've got 2 seconds to try and make up, which would put them into an A final qualifying position, and that's all they're going to be thinking about, Olivia, right? Is it doesn't matter where they come other than last. And so Durham's job at the moment, and what their Cox will be doing, is trying to pick off the seats to push them up into a qualifying position.
Absolutely, that's where the entertainment's going to be in those last 2 positions. So Durham are going to have to definitely try and replace Oxford Brookes. Just depends how easy Oxford Brookes are going to let it go, so it'll be interesting to see what happens there. They're just passing through. They passed through the 1,000 metre mark now. They're coming up to the 1,500 metre mark.
Yeah, and it's still the opposite sides of the lake. Very difficult for us to try and keep that in shot because it's University of London on the left-hand side of your picture, and then as far away as you can get in lane number 1 over on the right-hand side, off shot, is Edinburgh University in second. It's then Newcastle, Imperial and Oxford Brookes, who are Clearwater ahead of Durham. I think this is going to be a fairly set repechage for the crews going through into that A final, but you know, stranger things have happened. Let's keep eyes on this final 250 metres to see who wins out for those favourable lane draws into the final.
Yes, definitely. Well, Durham has been surprising over the last couple of years, so it will be very interesting to see what happens in this last 250 metre mark, which they're coming through now.
Yeah, Oxford Brookes surging back here actually into the mix, and this is their second boat in this championship event. They've already qualified one already, who went straight through to the A final from the time trial. So they're vying for a second crew into the A final. It looks like they're going to achieve that if they can hold off Durham, who are surging as fast as they can. But it's almost like a reverse chevron here actually, the opposite of what we'd expect to see, with the outside lanes here pushing through, and it's going to be the University of London with little bother crossing the line. Edinburgh and Newcastle just saving their energy to come second, and over the line third Newcastle. It's then going to be Imperial ahead of Oxford Brookes, doing enough to hold off Durham, who will be eliminated from this championship Coxed Fours event.
What a strong race. You know, these people are really at the top of their game now. This is the pinnacle of their fitness in this rowing year. So it'll be, and it's also been great to see the positions compared to BUCS Head as well, because some clubs are more adapted to regatta racing than head racing.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like, you know, Durham picked up medals in, I think, both Fours events at the BUCS Fours and Eights Head up in Newcastle on the Tyne, and look, they've just been eliminated from the regatta event. So just goes to show you that it's a very different sport, it's a very different approach here, and they'll have done some very different training. We're already off the start with the next of our races, which is the Women's Intermediate 8 AB semi-final. 1 in 1 we've got UCL, in 2 Oxford Brookes B, in 3 Newcastle A, in 4 Oxford Brookes A, in 5 Liverpool, and in 6 Bristol. And you'll be pleased to see some Liverpool representation here, Olivia.
Absolutely, it's great to see them here, and they've been really coming up the ranks, the women's squad, in the last year. I believe they've got a new coach this year, which is fantastic, and we've been seeing definite improvement in their positions. For example, in BUCS Head, they came third actually in the Women's Intermediate 8, and for Women's Head of River, I believe they came first in the academics.
Yeah, what a great set of results through the head racing season for Liverpool, and they've been on the up and up and up over the last kind of 5-6 years, and yeah, this would be a great win for them if they can get into this A final. You know, again, some big names surrounding them, Oxford Brookes and Newcastle's A crews respectively in the centre lanes, both previous winners of this event, both previous medalists of this event in years gone by. They're often the two that are switching the honours for the gold medal in Women's Intermediate 8s. But yeah, great to see some new names like Liverpool, Bristol. Also, we've said about their men's intermediate squad on the way up, their Women's Intermediate 8 here in the AB semi-final. And UCL as well, you know, the sort of smaller cousins of the University of London. UCL, we've got to remember, is the college, you know, one of the colleges of the University of London. So definitely a smaller pool of athletes, and great to see them here in this AB semi-final. So we've got the first 500 metre times. I think at the moment it looks to me like Oxford Brookes A and B are in first and second respectively. So they're going to leave everyone else to fight for that third spot through.
Yes, it seems that there won't be too much of a difference between Oxford Brookes A and B. It's interesting to see how they'll do in this, because they're all competing against each other as well as other crews in this race, so it's competitive internally as well as externally.
Yeah, and I think that's something that Oxford Brookes are really good at, right, is they always turn up in fours, they always turn up with multiple eights, and this is what they do in training, right, is they sit next to each other, they knock chunks out of each other, and so they're prepared for this kind of situation, and they're used to chasing the crew ahead of them, you know, and these two crews all train with their championship crew, who won the championship 8-time trial this morning, so yeah, it's going to be quite something to watch. But look at this style here from the Oxford Brookes A crew. You can see why they're previous winners of this event. This will be, as I say, Oxford Brookes' second crew. Their first 8 is in the championship event. And look at that clear water they've got over the rest of the field.
They're almost making it look easy, aren't they, Camilla? It just everything about the way that they row is so perfect. It's perfected in every way, and that's just months and years of training for races like these. Yeah,
look at that gap between the Brooks A crew and the rest of the chasing pack, and Newcastle have got the test, I guess, of trying to fend off Oxford Brooks B to try and stop it being a Brooks 1-2 through to the final, and that second 500's done them wonders. I think they've got their bow ball out in front of Oxford Brooks B, which they will really relish, and they have, with this little side-by-side race between Newcastle and Brooks B, they've pushed themselves away from the rest of the field, trying to confirm and consolidate those top 3 spots. You know, that little race has allowed them to move away from the rest of the pack and make their spots even firmer. So it does look like, to me, at this point in time, it is going to be the sort of classic lineup for this intermediate women's eights final. Oxford Brooks and Newcastle, like I say, previous winners of this event year on year. They tend to be really big contenders and always know that they're going to match up against one another in this event, and that's exactly what is happening. Liverpool currently sits in 4th position, I think, over in lane number 5, just ahead of lane number 6, Bristol University. So they've just gone through 1,500 metres. We'll get a check on times in just a second. Well, you can see with your eyes, though, that we've got one very clear leader in this first AB semi-final of the women's intermediate eights. No questions asked of Oxford Brooks A. Now, the tussle between Newcastle A and Oxford Brooks B, well, if it's been won in the third 500, it's been won by Newcastle. They've got 500 metres to try and hang on. It's whether they wind up or whether they're happy with those placings and comfortable at the moment. I think Newcastle actually are lowering the rate, and Oxford Brooks happy to sit in third and not try and get their own butt back here, Olivia.
Yes, there are definitely a clear 3 in the lead there with Oxford, Newcastle, Oxford. So yes, that positioning might change around, but I don't think they'd all be too bothered about this as long as they get through into the A final and just hold those positions in the top 3 there.
Yeah, it's almost like a very strong battle paddle here in second and third. Neither quite wanting to show their colours, but they are wanting to get into second. So it's just a very sort of strong lower rating from Newcastle, from Oxford Brooks B. They are closing the gap up to Oxford Brooks A, who have lowered the weight rate so dramatically that it just looks like a Sunday paddle for them. This is going to be quite a dominant performance, I think. No scratches on them whatsoever. And I think the A final is calling, and I think probably the gold medal is calling in the final this afternoon. I don't see anyone getting close to them. What a performance from Oxford Brooks A. Newcastle, well, they win the game of chicken between themselves and Oxford Brooks B, who just tap it over the line. Clear water between those top 3 places, and Liverpool, who come in 4th. They'll be contesting the B final later today. Bristol in 5th, and then it's going to be University College London that come into the picture for 6th position. And rounding off this first AB semi-final of the women's intermediates. We'll have the second semi-final in just a second to see who will be joining them.
No, they haven't.
So in this next race now, we have the second women's intermediate 8 AB semis, and so in lane 1 we have Cambridge, lane 2 London, lane 3 Cambridge, 4 Edinburgh, Durham in lane 5 and York in lane 6.
So we're looking to see who's going to be joining the two BUCS crews and Newcastle A in the A final of intermediate 8. And this Cambridge crew, well, this is a mixture, I believe, of some of the lightweights from the lightweight boat race, and also some of the Cambridge development athletes, and rowing extremely nicely. Beautiful catches here into this nice flat water that we've got at Home Pierpont. Makes a change, doesn't it, to be saying that. Nice flat water and beautiful conditions we've got here at Home Pierpont. Cambridge tightly packed in, actually, with second place, which I think at the moment is Edinburgh University. We're going to wait for the times to trickle through to tell us exactly where everyone is at. But for me, definitely Cambridge in the lead with a 2-second advantage over second. In fact, it's Edinburgh University, lane number 4. That's my fault, in fact. Cambridge in third, the light blue and the light green, just playing havoc. Just goes to show you could commentate on this race for years and years and you still get confused. Edinburgh University, the baby blues rather than the light blues, in the lead here. Durham in second in lane number 5, Cambridge in third. It's then the University of London in fourth position, which would see them out of the A final and into the B final. But yeah, Edinburgh in this intermediate event, currently taking the honours.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to be a difficult one between Cambridge and London, fighting for that third place to get through to that A final. So they are now coming up to the 1500 metre mark. This is where they're coming to the Pain Cave, the last 500 metres as well. And it'll be interesting to see whether some crews decide to take the rate up or not, or some decide to stay where they are. It seems like this one's going to be a close one for that third place.
So the fight definitely still on for the third and final spot through to the A final in this women's intermediate 8s event. 500 metres to go. Edinburgh University here in the lead and looking to take the top spot through. They've managed to establish about a boat length's lead over the rest of the field, which usually in an 8 at this point is unattainable for the rest of the athletes. A length is quite a long way to make up, but certainly for the second and third spots, no way decided yet. Durham still sitting second. They are going to be plagued by Cambridge over in lane number 3, and certainly their Cox will be aware of that, keeping an eye just to her left. Durham in the purple on the left of Edinburgh there. Cambridge in the light blue on the middle of your picture. They are next to and trying to fight off at the moment the University of London, who are absolutely flying, and I think we should keep the University of London under our watchful eye, as they will be aware of what's at stake. They'll be aware of what's on the table, and in fact UL are charging for Cambridge. This could be a late overtake in the last stages of this race. Cambridge are in danger, Durham are in danger, and they're just out of shot at the moment. The University of London are going to creep in to the bottom of your picture. Olivia, this is going to be so close.
Oh, this is going to be a fantastic finish here between Cambridge and UL. It's looking very close. If you have a look, it'll be on the right hand side of your screen. You can see the fight between those two. It's neck and neck right now.
Who's going to miss out? 3 crews behind Edinburgh, who are almost certain to go through to the A final. It's between Durham, Cambridge and the University of London. At the moment it looks like Durham and Cambridge, but UL surging late. It's going to be so close, could barely tell. I think Cambridge in second, and I think potentially just too close between Durham and UL.
That was extremely close, and that'll have to be confirmed by our umpires, but it did seem like it could have been Edinburgh, but again that will be confirmed. What a race, what a finish.
So looking at the finish times at the top of our screen, it looks to me like it was I'm not sure. We're going to watch the replay just now. So this is Edinburgh coming over in first. I think Cambridge just sneaks second, but Durham's on the top, UL on the bottom, and I think it's just going to depend on where we are in the stroke. And I think UL, just London here, going through the line ahead of Durham. It's you can row 2,000 metres, and that's what separates you at the end between the A and B final.
Interesting. So that was a very interesting result there, and it just shows that it's all down to the milliseconds there.
So the Women's Championship 8 now. This is the repechage. There are 5 to go through to the A final, and 1 crew sadly will miss out on the A final here. Newcastle in 1, London in 2, Cambridge in 3, Durham in 4, Imperial in 5, and Edinburgh in 6. So you can see the 1,000 metre times there. So 5 crews to go through. London currently leading what was predominantly the blue boat here from Cambridge, the stern pair of Imogen Grant and Grace Prendergast, 2 of the star names from this year's boat race, the winning crew. They've got 2 subs on board, but I'm assured that they've not touched the 8 since completing the boat race back in April. But they are currently being led by the Tideway locals, the University of London, a very strong crew. University of London finalists in the new University Women's 8 event at Henley Royal last year, and showing why they deserve to be there here in this third 500. It's then Edinburgh. We just saw a very strong performance from them in the intermediate 8s, looking to build on that in championship, and then Durham and Newcastle holding down 4th and 5th. Very important for them to stay ahead of Imperial College London in lane number 5.
So yeah, we have London in the lead with Cambridge following, Edinburgh, then Durham. And there is quite a big gap between London and Cambridge. So London are really just, they're controlling this race. They're the ones who are dominating this. And then it's a little bit closer between Cambridge and Edinburgh, with only 2 milliseconds in between. So that'll be a very interesting race to see between those.
Yeah, the last seat here is going to be a very interesting one into that A final, because Newcastle are slipping back in lane number 1. You can see them there on the right hand side of your screen. They've been overtaken by Imperial since 1,500 metres, and they are in danger of missing the A final of Championship Women's 8s for the first time in, well, I don't know how many years. Newcastle have been winners of this event within the last 10 years, and at the moment they potentially could be missing out. No one's touching the University of London. Cambridge also looking safe. Imogen Grant in the stroke seat for Cambridge will have to whiz back up to the start, because in 20 minutes time she's got the final of her championship lightweight single scull to contend, so we'll have her again in just a moment. She'll be trying to conserve as much energy as possible. Over on the far side, Edinburgh still leading Durham, but everyone now scrapping for those final places. It's the race where you don't want to be last, Olivia.
It's definitely not. They're coming up to the final here. So in the last 100 metres, we have UL taking the lead comfortably, and close behind them there is Cambridge, followed smoothly by Edinburgh, and then it'll be a very close one between Durham and Imperial, and Newcastle as well, in fact.
Yeah, Newcastle saw the danger there. They came right on back and I think shoved Imperial out to the elimination zone. We'll wait for that confirmation. But to me, the finish order there, we saw London ahead of Cambridge. It was then Edinburgh over Newcastle and Durham, fairly close together. I think Newcastle actually surged through from last into fourth. Durham then fifth ahead of Imperial in that very dangerous sixth position, but we'll wait for it to be confirmed. But that will be the final of the repêchages and semi-finals for this morning. So that's the end of this session here on the live stream. Make sure that you jump on over to our next session on the live stream, which will be the finals that will